Hey, St. Catharines, Mayor Matt Sisco here, and welcome to another episode of talkSTC. It's been a busy couple of months. Election season has come and gone. It was long this year. We had a provincial election, we had a federal election, and we had a municipal by-election, and that's going to actually be a part of today's show. But before we get into that, I want to congratulate my good friend Jenny Stevens, who was re-elected as the MPP for St. Catharines, Chris Biddle, who was re-elected recently as the MP for St. Catharines at the federal level, my good friend Marty Mako, who was elected as the Port Dalhousie City Councillor, and Marty's going to be with us today as we talk a little bit about his priorities for the remainder of this term. I also want to send a thank you to Sam Osterhoff, who does represent a portion of St. Catharines, and a thank you to Jeff Birch, who represents a portion of St. Catharines, both re-elected as MPPs. And also Dean Allison, re-elected as the MP on the west end of St. Catharines. Like I said, a lot of elections signs, a lot of election activity, and I think you will all agree with me that we're okay if we go for a couple months at least without another election. There was some other stuff that went on. It's sometimes hard to remember that with the elections that did happen, but we had the volunteer awards last month, and those were very well attended. I want to thank all of the individuals who came out. Volunteers are absolutely the lifeblood of our community, and the work that they do makes it the community that we all want to live in. I was also at the groundbreaking for Phase 2 of the Gillian's Place expansion. That's exciting. It's sad, unfortunately, that they need to expand, but the work that Gillian's Place does in our community is absolutely essential. So I want to thank them for the invitation, and I look forward to their expansion plans. And I had the chance to attend the FACS Gala. Family and Children's Services had their annual gala last month, and I was able to be there with a couple of other folks from the community. Fantastic event, and thank you to FACS for all that they do. As I said, today we're going to be speaking to City Councillor Marty Mako, who represents the Port Dalhousie ward, and then after that we'll be joined by Pam Seabrook, the fundraising and events manager for the Niagara Folk Arts Festival, to talk about all of the events that have been going on and are upcoming during the month of May. It's always my favorite time, and it's always a good opportunity to pack on a couple of extra pounds. But first up is my good friend Marty Mako, the newly elected Port Dalhousie ward councillor. Marty, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation, Matt. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Married father of 2 young daughters, longtime Port Dalhousie resident. He works for Niagara Emergency Medical Services as their commander of Mobile Integrated Health, leading an amazing team of healthcare heroes. I promise you I will not call you commander at council. Graduate of McMaster University and Niagara University with a master's degree in business administration. He is also very active in the community, having served on city committees, volunteering with many local nonprofits, including as a volunteer reporter with your TV. So you're right back where
well, it's kind of funny. I'm on the other side of the camera.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm the one with the microphone in hand asking the questions at community events, which I will hopefully be able to continue doing. But today, I'm being asked the questions, so different side of the microphone.
A little bit different,
but still exciting.
First of all, congratulations. You were sworn in at our council meeting. You had your first council meeting. What was that like? What was it like to be in the horseshoe and prodded to put your hand up and say stuff?
Well, very exciting. I mean, that's what you do it for, right? Yeah. The campaigning was a lot of hard work over a couple of months. So you're so busy every day, working full time, the canvassing in the evenings, but it's all towards that goal, right? Yeah. So I was very excited. I'll give the city staff a lot of credit. They helped set me up for success and feel prepared. The orientation program that was developed was very comprehensive, helped me understand all the behind the scenes process steps, because maybe that's some of the things you're more nervous about screwing up, is pushing the wrong button at the wrong time on the monitor, or raising your hand, or voting when you're supposed to put your hand up and saying yes. So it's really understanding the procedural elements that I was less familiar with. So I felt prepared as much as I could be. When you're there, the bug, nervous jitters start settling in. But once the meeting started, you gave me a really kind, warm welcome, and I felt that the team there was supporting me throughout. So we made it.
Yeah. And I let you wear the Mayor's Championship belt.
Hey, that was a highlight photo, and just really funny. But then my wife and 2 daughters came too, was really special. I mean, this was a real special highlight of my life that night. So it was made really special by everyone who came.
And then they made the smart executive decision to leave after all the fun stuff at the beginning.
After the formal official swearing in ceremony, you get down to real business, and I think before they fell asleep, they decided to leave.
Yeah, good call, good call. So I mean, The interesting thing for me here is like you and I met during a city council election 15 years ago now, 2010. I mean, that was the year that I first got elected. And you and I had met each other on the campaign trail. My first press release was a joint press release with you talking about two city council hopefuls who were quote unquote running for council because we were running, I think, the Run for the Grapes.
Yes.
And I mean, I was very lucky. I managed to get elected in that one. You came as close as a human being can come to winning without actually making it through. So, I mean, fast forward 14 years.
Yeah.
What caused you to want to put your name in the hat this time?
Well, I think when you're committed to something like community leadership, I'd like to think it's not a short-term goal.
Yeah.
That being dedicated to giving back and make your community a better place, I would like to think is a life's work. So yes, I was going against two incumbents back in 2010. I tried my very best, but didn't quite make it. I fell just over 20 votes short. But I thought, whoa, that was much better than I thought for a first try. And so rather than go away and hide, I kind of went the other way and got more involved.
Yeah.
And said, well, maybe I'm not ready to be a counselor yet. What else can I do?
Yeah.
So I started getting involved more as a volunteer in city committees. So I got involved in the Heritage Advisory Committee, the Rec Master Plan, the Sustainability Committee. So I thought, well, that gives me a good sense of the inner workings of City Hall and how decisions are made and how you can be an advocate for change, even though you're not a city councilor. And then in the nonprofit sphere, I've always been involved with charities and nonprofits. So just kept giving back in any way that I could and always had a thought, someday I'll try again.
Yeah.
But I did feel that our councillor Carlos Garcia had the ward in a strong place with his leadership and Bruce Williamson as well. So I thought it doesn't need to be me right now. And so I decided to get more advanced in other areas of my life. Personally, I got married. I had two young kids. So I was quite busy personally and then professionally moving on in my career with Niagara EMS. I just had other irons in the fire, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I never let this dream die. And
That's
then when
awesome.
this opportunity happened quite suddenly with the passing of Carlos, I thought I had to make a decision, and now's the time.
Well, I think you made the right decision, and I think it's interesting. You said you were up against two incumbents, and I honestly think that was sort of the difference in our situations is I only had one incumbent. One of the incumbents at the time decided she didn't want to run again, and so there was an empty seat. And yeah, it's interesting how those things play out, but I think you did it the right way. Young people get involved, and sometimes that first election, I always say, you have to expect you're going to lose that first election. I went into that campaign, I thought I was up against two incumbents, and I was assuming I was going to lose. So it was a learning experience, right? And I figured, okay, I'm going to learn, I'm going to figure out what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and then, continue on with your community work. Coaching was my big thing. I loved coaching, although you and I, after that election, you and I then became what did we call ourselves? The Queen Street Baptist Basement Justice League.
Yes, for the Out of the Cold shelter.
We did Out of the Cold overnights at the Queen Street Baptist Church for a long time, 8 or 9 years.
That's right.
Yeah, I figured that would be the path. And I think for those young people that get involved in politics, expect to lose the first time, but never stop being involved in your community, because if that is a goal, if that's the direction you want to go, that's how you do it. Like, you get out into the community and you become more aware of what your community believes in and what it thinks and what it needs.
And I think it shows authenticity too, that you're truly meaning it.
Yeah.
You want to be involved for the long term. And it's interesting, this time around when I ran, I had a number of people comment they'd been watching since 2010 what I was doing. So, that sustained involvement was being noticed.
Yeah.
And I think that felt good too. It showed I wasn't just in it for the short term.
No, and I think that was very obvious and a very commanding victory on election night. What were the key topics or themes? What were you hearing from residents at the door?
Well, what I really learned, all politics is local, and I think we know that. But I would even bring it down to the street and say, when I would knock on a door and canvass, which was my priority for during election time, I do think that's the best use of time, is still knocking on doors and talking to people face to face. It should be the priority for any candidate, would be my advice. So I would introduce myself at the door, and then I would say, but my main role here is to listen to you. So do you have any ideas, concerns, things you want to bring forward about the city or about the ward? People would often comment on their street and bring it down to that hyper-local level. So I would say within the Heritage District of Port Dalhousie, it would be more heritage-related concerns about development. The developments that have been approved down in the commercial core, getting those approved and moving forward was an issue. Also respecting concerns around traffic and parking and ensuring that was respected. That's what you'd hear when you'd be in the Heritage district. Also, access to the beach and the waterfront being a priority. The $15 parking pass still came up. So those sort of issues. When you'd be out in the rest of the ward, the more residential area, because it goes out to Geneva, Scott Street, out to 7th, Linwell, you hear more core city service issues. Fixing my potholes. How was the snow plowing over the winter? What about my tree trimming? Like what you might call those more bread and butter city issues. That's what I hold the majority of the time when I'd be out in the more residential areas.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny. You said a couple things there that are really important, and I say this all the time. In a municipal campaign, the only thing that matters is knocking on doors. Get to as many doors as you can. Talk to as many human beings as you can. I sit with people now before elections, and I tell them, like, knock on doors. Don't worry about social media. Don't worry about signs.
Exactly.
Have a good piece of literature that explains who you are and what you believe in, and knock on doors and talk to people. So kudos to you for recognizing that. I mean, with respect to your approach this time around, was that literally it? It was just get out and talk to as many people as possible?
That was priority one. Do you need a website? Absolutely.
Yep.
You do need an online presence, but I would be cautious of how much time you spend going down those rabbit holes in social media. I think have a presence, tell your story there, but I would say most of your time should still be face-to-face. Even if it's a 2-minute conversation at a door, those can be priceless.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb is there are no undecided voters on social media.
Well said.
So you've got 18 months until the next municipal election. What are you hoping to accomplish? Like, what's top on your priority list of things you want to get done before you go out for re-election?
Yeah, it's a really good question because this was a by-election.
Yep.
So what I have to remind people is the city's strategic plan has already been set and approved. The budget has already been set and approved. So you have to understand, how can I integrate into these major decisions that have already been made? One thing you can do is listen and be responsive to residents.
Yep.
I'm already getting emails. I think I was before I was sworn in when I was still elected. But it's to show people they are being heard. That's a common critique people like to say is the city doesn't listen to me. So being that advocate and champion and bringing issues forward, I think is priority one. Another thing I did is I took notes, pages and pages and pages of notes when I was canvassing. A commitment I made to myself was to type all of those up and theme them and analyze them so I can then share those back and say, here's what you told me your priorities were. So some of the general themes that I shared with you just a couple of minutes ago, I'd like to help bring some of those forward.
Yep.
If you want one fun example, is about dogs. You probably have an idea. Port Dalhousie has so many dog owners. I'm not going to say I'm going to change the name to Port Dogloosie, but
that's good because there'd be a lot of opposition. It's cute, but still.
No, but there was a question about what about a dog park in the North End?
Yeah.
And could the city explore something like that? Because people use Henley Island as kind of an unsanctioned dog park right now. So I have some ideas that were brought up by multiple people during canvassing that I think I'd like to try and advocate and champion. But in terms of really big picture issues, that's been set already. Yeah. So I think my role for the first few meetings at least is do more listening than talking and try to see how I can fit into those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, the learning curve for a new councillor, I always say it's very much like that. It's a steep hill to climb. I got a lot of faith that you're going to be able to do that. Now, a couple fun questions, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot because I don't think I prepped you for this. You can't pick a place in Port Dalhousie. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite spot in the city of St. Catharines?
Listen, I grew up in Meriton.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be somewhere in Meriton, Hartsel Road, like the old Meriton High School, just that tennis court in Community Center. I spent my childhood there.
Have you seen the new tennis courts?
Yes, that's why I'm saying it. It's beautiful. And just the renovations done there, that pool, that tennis court, the Labor Day parade, that was my childhood until I reached high school. So I think outside of Port Dalhousie, which is my home and my kids' home, family home now, that tennis court there would be one of my favorite places.
So can I expect then that you're going to be at George Taylor Field for the Niagara Ironbacks baseball season this year?
Hey, that's another play. I'll tell you some more funny stories. So the old junior Stompers or St. Catharines Baby Jays played there when I was in high school at Meriton High School. I won't forget Baby J player knocking a foul ball through my finite math class window.
That's the best use of finite math class I can imagine.
But just like that was the history, was having that diamond right beside our high school.
100%. Marty, thank you so much for coming in. I'm sure we'll have you in again sometime soon, but I appreciate taking a few minutes out of your day.
It's a pleasure, and I'm just happy to be part of a great team.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We will be right back on this episode of talkSTC. Welcome back to talkSTC. My next guest is Pam Seabrook. She is the fundraising and events manager for my favorite month of the year, which is the Niagara Folk Arts Festival. It happens every May. It's been happening for 57 years.
57 years.
57 years, longest continually running folk arts festival in the country. Pam's originally from Sudbury. We won't hold that against you. You grew up as a Scottish Highland dancer. Your sister and you danced. Your father played the bagpipes, and your mother sewed the costumes.
Yep.
So I will just say, bagpipes are literally, quite literally, my favorite instrument on the planet. I love the sound of the bagpipes. Every parade I'm at, whenever there's bagpipes, I love the pipes.
Well, he was somewhat of an inspiration for the May 20th event.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You attended Brock, graduated with a combined honors of classics and theater. And your dance background and performer experience gave you insight into the mission of the festival, what performers need, and what you want to create for artists to have full expression for them and everything they do. That's phenomenal. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm not kidding. I was at Dennis Morris a little while back talking to the grade 10 civics class, and someone asked me, what's your favorite event that the city does? And I said, it's Folk Arts Festival, and I didn't have to think about it. I will say, part of the reason why I have to run as much as I do and do CrossFit is because of the damage I do in a month going around from folk arts, open house to open house to open house, all the events, and eating. Why do you do this to us?
Because I think the table is where everybody gathers throughout the world.
Yeah.
Right? It's cuisine.
I wanted to make sure there was a really good answer, and that's a really good answer.
Okay, well that's it.
How did you get into folk arts? Like, what sort of drew you to it?
Well, it was my placement
Okay.
from Niagara College way back in the day.
Okay.
So this was supposed to be a side gig. I was going to graduate school. I was going to the National Theatre School.
Okay.
But then, it just pulled you in. I like to see persons happy. And then with events that you can get to do. Folk arts in particular speaks to me because it's those that are struggling, those that are new, those that are coming.
Yep.
And I want to help them. And then my own personal experience, my grandparents, they were from Scotland and Ireland. Couldn't get more Scots or Irish. Like, no way. So that's why we did Highland dancing, etc.
Yep.
And we just did all the things that we were supposed to do. We did all the parades. We did all the Canada Days. We did the Robbie Burns night. We did the St. Patrick's. Like, we just all those. That was our world cultural. So when we came down here, I found that festival and I was just amazed that it was happening. And then I was very pleased and very happy that I got to be part of it way back in '99. So yeah.
So, and you mentioned something interesting there, like 57 years and, newcomers. The face of newcomers has changed, though, over 57 years. And, it's interesting because a lot of those groups that may have been the newcomers 50, 60 years ago, they're very much established communities now in town. They're still doing their open houses, like I get out to St. John's Ukrainian, or I'm going to go to the Polish Hall on Facer. They're still doing theirs, but now you have different groups coming in. Like this year, I believe, is it the Bulgarian community?
Yep, this is their second open house.
Okay.
So last year they were tentative out, and it was really well done.
Yep.
And they really learned a lot. So this year, I'm really looking forward to it. They were going to try and expand their church, which is a beautiful building, and it has beautiful, iconic paintings inside. And they give a tour of that. It's out in the church grounds. It's kind of small, so they've expanded because there were so many people, which is always good news to me. I'm so happy you ran out of food, you ran out of space. Your volunteers were very busy.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Well, and this is, the Ethiopian community. I know they just started up a couple of years ago, and so they're running an open house this year. But talk a little bit about how it's changed, and how hard is it to, when you have new communities that are building up in St. Catharines and Niagara, how hard is it to convince them, listen, we'd love for you to be a part of this? Or is there an eagerness on their part?
It's kind of a combination.
Okay.
So yes, those that have been around for several years, they are experiencing volunteer cycle out.
Yeah.
They're aging out, so they have to replace. So that's their struggle. Then we have the new ones, like you said. They come to us quite a bit, and we also kind of recruit as well. If I see somebody, would you like to come? We had a couple of persons last night at our Harmony Night. The Niagara Cultural Corporation, wonderful. And I saw their festival in Welland, so then I contacted them. And that's how we go. So we have the Bahamian community is going to be new. The Korean Culture Center in Niagara, they're coming up. As I said, the Latin, sorry, that was the Latin group that I mentioned before. The Bulgarians, this is their second year. The Ethiopian group, this is their third year.
Yep.
So we try to foster, by year 3, 4, great.
Is there a Korean Cultural Association open house this year?
No, they're looking for probably next year.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. As a guy who lived in South Korea for a couple of years and misses the culture immensely, desperately some days, I'm excited.
Oh, good. Okay. Yep, they were there last night. They will be at our open house too.
And it's funny, it's actually the comment that I made to the Dennis Moore students when I was talking about this is I love to travel, and I've had the benefit and the privilege to be able to go to a lot of different places in my life. It's part of being a military brat is sometimes you just get dragged along on those trips. Maybe you're moving somewhere new. But that's kind of what's cool about the Folk Arts Festival is you get to feel a little bit of the culture. You're going to experience the art. Maybe you'll see dancing or music, or whatever the case is. The food, which I think is a lot of people's favorite part about discovering new cultures. But the Folk Arts Festival gives you an opportunity to experience things that, otherwise you'd have to get on a plane and fly for a couple of hours to a different part of the world. You can experience that right in your community and maybe learn something new about like your neighbors. And that's a very cool aspect of it.
I'm always reminded about how the globe will affect St. Catharines and the Niagara region, for good or bad. And it's just even as easy as just seeing someone's face that doesn't look like yours.
Yeah.
And let's have a conversation. Oh, we don't have a language that's common. And here's how we talk commonly. It's art, it's food, it's sport.
So you kicked off the festival. We had the flag raising at City Hall. And then you mentioned Harmony Night. Now it used to be the Ambassadors Ball. So how's that change? Where did that come from? So
part of the change, right? We just talked about change. So 21st century, we need to move, we need to pivot.
Yep.
The Ambassadors Ball was really a sort of an insular celebration, which was great.
Yep.
It was your dinner dance and everybody in the folk arts community got together. As the audience has, aged away, we now need to also have a new focus. We don't have the same European focus that we used to. It's now very more global.
Yep.
So we have to speak to that. And so Harmony was inspired by Australia, and they have a Harmony Week.
Okay.
And they celebrate all immigrants that come to Australia, and they have the highest immigration rate pretty much in the world.
Really?
So they have this wonderful program, and we just, inspiration. So that's what we have. It's harmony, and it's harmony of dance and vocals, and just the cultural dress that was there last night was wonderful.
That's amazing.
It was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm going to blame Regional Council once again. Regional Council seems to be the center point of a lot of my issues. But we had a committee meeting, and so I wasn't able to get there because I had to be at that. But okay, so in terms of events, May 8th, Bridges Niagara is hosting their open house from 10:30 to 2. What can people expect if they attend?
Well, we're going to have the Korean community. There's going to be an energetic Taekwondo.
Okay.
For sure. It's a master Taekwondo will be there leading. So it's going to be really, really good.
Very
and
cool.
Of course, our favorite cultural fashion show, the Ethno Cultural Fashion Show, that's it.
Yes.
That is the thing. Everybody wears their cultural dress, and they come out, and it's explained, or their personality is explained, why they're wearing what they're wearing, what's the meaning of that. And then at the end, it's just a big old jam.
Yeah.
And everybody gets on stage. Pretty much nobody speaks the same language.
Okay.
Like, not at all. And we have to have interpreters,
Yeah.
and we do our best, but they're mainly our students and clients. But once you get that music going, and once you have someone in their cultural dress, exchange is happening. You can see it. Everybody's talking. Everybody's doing their thing. And then we go on stage, and that's great. And then we bring the kids up, and it's yeah! And that's what the cultural fashion show is.
That's awesome. May 14th, you've got the newcomer and community basketball game for the Harmony Cup. I'm going to apologize again.
I know.
Unfortunately, work gets in the way of the fun stuff. I'm not going to be here this year, which is okay because I get schooled pretty hard by the kids and the newcomers. They usually take me to the woodshed pretty quickly in a game of basketball. But tell me a little bit about that. Who else is involved with that? It's the newcomer communities and...
And I have to say, Brock University is a great supporter of this.
Yep.
So last year, they provided 2 of their men's basketball team members, and they came in full kit.
Yep.
Well, that was like the NBA had shown up.
Yeah.
And that was great. And they were cheering them on, and they were trying, it was a bit funny. They were trying to actually coach them, and people are just taking the ball and they're just bouncing it.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and throwing it. And at one point we had like 20 people on the
Yes.
court. And they're like, no, there's too many. I'm like, just leave it. It's okay.
I'm still pushing for a soccer game. I feel like I might be able to hold my own a little bit more in a soccer game, but I'll keep pushing towards that.
Okay.
And then new this year, on May 20th, you have an event called Sing It Canada, Canadian Melodies, Diverse Voices, and that's going to be at the Exchange in Niagara Falls. So tell me a little bit about that one, because that's new.
Yes, it's brand new. So as I alluded to before, my dad played pipes, kind of was an inspiration. He played rock and roll on the pipes.
Really?
Back in the 80s.
Very cool.
It was just a thing, or a song from the radio or whatever. And it was like he would just be practicing. He was a competitive pipe band member. And then in the middle of something, because you're in the house, like you just get used to having the pipes being practiced in the home. And then all of a sudden he would start, and you just knew that that was the funny joke that he was just sending out. So with that, it's Canadian songs that have been chosen by our cultural artists, and they're singing it or performing it in an arrangement that reflects their cultural background.
Yep.
So we have an Irish harpist, and she may do Neil Young.
Okay.
Right? And we have somebody the ska band. They're a Spanish language ska.
Okay.
That's amazing.
That is.
How about punk Irish?
Okay.
And they're leaning towards Celine Dion, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
It's all going to be a surprise. So, Spanish language. And then it also can be straight up just playing a cover, but it's with their instruments or in their arrangements and their beat. So it's not going to be your same old Canadian song.
That's a cool, unique twist. I like that. Okay, so I think you said already, 22 open houses this year?
22.
How many are you going to get to?
22.
Okay. I'm aiming for 14. That's my goal. I'm hopeful, but I have to be away at a conference in the middle, so I'm working really hard to fit my schedule around things. Do you have a favorite?
No, I
Okay.
can't. I'm not allowed.
Okay. I have aspects of different ones that I really love. Like there's a rice dish at the Armenian celebration, which is ridiculous, and like my kids love it. Like they demand, and it's right down the street, so that's easy. But then the schnitzel at Club Heidelberg with the sauerkraut is so phenomenal, and I love that. In the past, there's been Filipino open houses, and they get me up on stage and I got to dance, and I hurt my ankles because I got those sticks that they slap together. And I know, so I have things, and I can remember, cultural communities in the past. I'm going to get pierogies at some point from both my Ukrainian and my Polish friends. There's aspects to every one of them that are phenomenal. So.
Yeah, well, for me, the Ethiopian group was great. And again, it's just to explore. Through cuisine, start there. That's the easy place to start.
I still bear a grudge because the Ethiopian folks made me dance a couple of years ago, and I didn't want to do that. Pam, thank you so much for being here and talking a little bit about folk arts. I can't wait to see you out there.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll be right back after this on talkSTC. St. Catharines, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of talkSTC. I want to give a big thank you to Marty Mako, our newest city councillor from the great ward of Port Dalhousie. I appreciated having a chat with him about his priorities for the upcoming term. I also want to thank Pam Seabrook from the Niagara Folk Arts Festival. It's a busy month of May. If you've got the opportunity, get out to those folk arts open houses. Always a fun time. Make sure you exercise a little bit though, just to burn off the calories. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of talkSTC.